Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of that culture curve. It is the goal each and every day that we rise and we shine here on the WDW Pro channel on YouTube. How about that? Well, folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick to the algorithms when you click it. That's the notification bell. We cover your comments, so drop one down below. Today we are discussing with the esteemed guests, Fat Steven and Caffeinated Wolf, the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. And yes, I have been talking about this now since day one of the channel. Not only have I been talking about it since day one, but I have been consistent and adamant that it was going to be a very big deal. Here it is, and it is indeed a big deal. Mario is now on its way to being the biggest animated movie of all time. The thing has not even opened yet in its second biggest market, and that second biggest market is not small, that being Japan, and then let's not forget South Korea as well. So it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It is going to gain momentum as it moves forward. Now, the Nintendo Cinematic Universe is something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, except, well, it's Nintendo properties, and it's probably all CGI driven by Illumination. I suspect that in the next decade or so that it will have a culmination of sorts with a Super Smash Brothers movie. And back when I was being given the info about the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, this is back around November or December, I had a couple of different sources come to me and start talking about this. And once I had two sources, I felt like it was strong enough to begin talking with all of you about it. But one of those sources provided me with sort of a roadmap for phase one of the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. And at the time, I didn't know what to do with it, because even then it said that Mario needed to break 700 million as a milestone to even trigger this thing happening. So what do you do with that? Why even speculate if it has to reach that milestone? Well, now that it looks like it's going to easily surpass 1 billion, it's time to discuss this. Before we go around and talk about these properties and potential movies or shows, we don't know which they might be. Before we talk about it, we do need to provide this caveat to all of you. First of all, I don't have any original documents or work documents from anybody, Illumination, Nintendo, or Universal. And I don't know when this information was brought forth. I don't know how it has changed. Certainly, since Mario has come out, things have definitely changed given how huge that movie has become. However, I think, honestly, that this is it's a solid roadmap for what possibly is coming in the future, and it merits our discussion as we go through this. So without further ado, it was a long road to get to this place. Gentlemen, are we ready to discuss the Nintendo Cinematic Universe Phase 1?
Let's go.
I'm ready. I don't know if film critics are.
Well, they might not be. They may have a real problem with white glove service. Here we go. All right, so this is not going to be a surprise. I've discussed this before, partially based on this and partially based on another source that came to me with lots of information and semi-corroborated this roadmap. But next up is not, apparently, Mario 2. Next up would be Zelda. So a Zelda movie is likely on the way, and the information I have on the movie is very vague. It just says a dark force seeks to rule a mysterious land, and it talks about an adventurer who will find a princess, join forces to ward off the forces of evil.
Okay, so we just described every Legend of Zelda game.
Isn't that funny? It's almost as if this was put in place prior to a script existing. You know, who knows what's going on? But we do know that per Giant Freaking Robot, they came out after I made the announcement that Zelda was under production, that they confirmed that as well. And I'm talking about pre-production at this point. We've heard that it's farther along than we might have anticipated. Now that makes a lot of sense given what we're seeing in the box office. But the other thing too is that we've heard about this movie, that the entire reason that Universal is moving How to Train Your Dragon into live action is to differentiate Zelda, which is a sword and sorcery genre, from How to Train Your Dragon, which is also a sword and sorcery genre.
You don't want to be competing with yourself.
Exactly. So let's go around. Wolf, you start us off this round, and Steven will start off on the next one. And folks, we're going to be going through. We've got a number of properties. If there's one that just doesn't interest you, We have timestamps down at the bottom of the video, so just go through and you can find exactly which one you want to hear about. You'll also be spoiling yourself, though, on what's coming up, so that's up to you on whether or not you want to do it. Wolf, how popular would you believe a Zelda movie could be at this point, having seen what Mario is doing?
Well, given what Mario is doing, and Zelda isn't too far behind Mario in terms of its popularity in the Nintendo fandom, and one could argue that it's even more popular given that it's more of a console seller than Mario is. Usually Nintendo doesn't drop a new Mario game, at least they haven't for the last few consoles, as the big seller to buy our console because we have this new Mario game. No, it's usually buy the console because we have a new Legend of Zelda game. That's their biggest franchise in terms of the most you could really do with its scope, scale, story. The Mario movie was phenomenal. I loved it. I'm going to see it at least one more time in theaters before it leaves IMAX. But the
You're addicted
story,
to peaches, aren't you, Wolf?
Hey, you know what? Jack Black put out a great song in the movie, and I'll go see it again just for that. But to be real, the story for the movie was no more deep than an average Super Mario Brothers game, which is to say not very deep, but that's perfectly fine. With Zelda, though, you can really dig into a lot more narrative stuff. I think Legend of Zelda film has a lot more potential to grab people that aren't just there for the nostalgia, aren't just there because we're fans of this franchise, but also want to maybe sink their teeth into something that's at least got a little bit more meat to it. And I think that The Legend of Zelda can be that film.
Which properties would you tell them if you were trying to assist them in picking what should be the inspiration? Which Zelda games would you tell them to focus in on? Because the Zelda games are quite different.
They are. The ones that you do, I think, are the ones that lend themselves best to a deeper storytelling. Things like Skyward Sword, things like Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess. If you want to go a little darker, you do Twilight Princess. That's a far darker story than most of the other Zelda titles, sans maybe Majora's Mask. You could do Breath of the Wild, but honestly, I feel like any of the other Legend of Zelda games would lend themselves better to an animated film to start with than Breath of the Wild. That's me personally as a longtime Zelda fan. I've been playing since early 90s. I would have played earlier, but I was too little to hold a controller at that point. But I would say do that. And it makes sense to follow up with Zelda because just like how the MCU in their first 3 phases kickstarted the whole thing with, okay, can we make Iron Man work? Okay, now we need to make sure we can make this guy work, Captain America. And then those are your 2 front runners. Those are the leads for your cinematic universe. This is the same scenario here. This is what you do. You make Mario work, cool. Now we make Zelda work. Awesome. Then you can branch out from there and do your subsequent less popular franchises in your kind of your world, in your game world. Then you can go into like things like Metroid and Donkey Kong and whatnot.
Stephen, given that the Nintendo Cinematic Universe and the Mario Brothers movie seems very geared for kids, do you think that they are more likely to go with the young Link in terms of Zelda with the movie, or do you think they go with adult Link? That's been a common thing through the games is, that you've got those 2 different types of Link, right, based on his age. What do you think?
Depending on how the legacy has gone out, I think they'll go mid-tier, let's say Link of the Past, and then branching into more of an adult Link. Mario's still an adult, but still maintained that cute feature. It doesn't matter. If you look at it this way, Mario has the princess and her savior. It's a trope, but the same thing can apply to Zelda and Link. And a dark force threatens over, let's say, Hyrule. You can at least do a trilogy with this and focus on the Triforces in general and Ganon, Ganondorf. I think
that's a great idea.
It is. At the same time, Majora's Mask would be good and more of a darker thing for adults, but I think it also exists outside the timeline as a standalone more than fitting into the Hyrule storyline, if I remember that correctly, because it's a what would you call it, a mini-verse bubble. I could get the terminology wrong. Majora's would be good, but it wouldn't really be a branch out. Ocarina would be a good one, but I'm thinking Link of the Past, like Super Nintendo, branching from around there, because that way you get 2 different worlds, and then you can also maybe lead into Dark Link. They want to maintain that there's something for girls and something for boys, right? Whether it be Princess Zelda or Princess Peach or Link and Mario. I think they want to have all of that.
Yes, that's a great point.
Well, I think the likelihood is what they'll do is they'll do what they did with the Mario movie, which is they took elements from almost every single game in the franchise and implemented it into the film.
You know, the one thing I would say too is that going forward now, depending on how much work they've already done, they probably have a huge amount of cushion added to them. You know, there's got to be this feeling of absolute relief and confidence, because when they were building this Mario movie, they probably didn't know how this was going to do. It could have done 500 million, could have done 700. When you're talking about, hey, we're going way north of $1 billion, probably, that gives you confidence going into these other movies to be more creative, but also to be confident in saying, you know what, we're going to get multiple shots at this franchise, so we don't have to tell the entire story all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the next one on this blueprint, I guess, for Phase 1 in the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. Again, we can't verify this, we can't corroborate it. All I can tell you is that this is part of what was given to me originally, and the other thing about it is that once Mario came out, and everybody will understand this as we continue on, there were some things in here that I went, okay, well, that's looking more likely now. The third thing, so if you think that Mario was the first step in Phase 1, and Chris Pratt has basically confirmed it is the Iron Man of the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, there's no doubt about that now. Mm-hmm. And we basically knew about Zelda, but the third one is not known. The tricky part about this is I don't really know this game franchise very well, and I don't have any details about what the movie would be about. So I'm really lost, and I'll need you guys to help me out. But the third thing, apparently, in this Nintendo Cinematic Universe is Metroid. And I can only think that perhaps this would be solid for Nintendo because they do get to bring in that girl boss character without any issues surrounding it. Steven, I hear you're quite excited about Metroid. Tell me why.
Roguelike, strong female warrior. You can't go wrong with that. You're literally taking the Mario role and you're flipping and giving us a Samus. And I think a lot of people love that because then you don't have to go with the whole woke broke narrative, even though we'll probably see that as that film comes to fruition. If it does come to fruition, you're giving pretty much a battle princess to both sides of the gender narrative. Guys love her, girls love her. It's perfect the way it is. I think that's what everyone wants. And then they want a Star Fox. I think it's just because you have to see you're taking something that you have to hold in your controller and you're seeing on the big screen, and you just get to see your childhood reimagined. I think that's what it is.
Wolf, any thoughts on Zero Suit Samus? That is Samus outside of the Metroid suit. That suit in particular, it might make some people unhappy if she appears in the way that she does in the video games, but Nintendo seems not to care.
Good. No, that's the character's design. Too bad. That's what she looks like. That's what she has looked like for decades. I don't care if people in Access Media or on Twitter have a problem with it. If they have a problem with it, then they're obviously not fans of the franchise, because Samus has looked like that. Samus Aran has had the Zero Suit for a very long time. This isn't news. When she's not in the Chozo armor, she's in the Zero Suit. That's just how it works. And I love this. This would be my pick for the third entry in the Nintendo Cinematic Universe. So if this pans out to be true, I am ecstatic, because this is going to be one of those instances, one of the many that exist, but people don't like to acknowledge exist, where gamers just want male characters. They don't like female characters. What are you talking about? We've been playing Metroid since the freaking late 80s, early 90s. And we, the remaster Metroid Prime for the Switch just did fantastic sales-wise. Like, this is just going to fly in the face of the media's narrative, and it's just going to be a ton of fun for fans. Again, if they're putting forth the same level of quality with each of these subsequent Nintendo Cinematic Universe releases, all these other properties, as they paid homage to the Mario movie, this is just going to be slam dunk after slam dunk for fans. Yes, and I
never know how Steven changes his avatar to something so poignant so quick. He is fast on the draw. Man.
I'm using this as a visual representation here, because you're saying, guys don't like girls. A lot of guys make girl characters in games, not just because we have to stare at it for 80 plus hours depending on the game, but because the female form is something to look at. And no offense to not having armor or not, that bodysuit speaks for itself, and it doesn't take it away from her at all as a heroine.
There you go.
Correct.
Gentlemen, anything else on Metroid before we move to, because after this, these are not things that I think people necessarily are fully expecting, at least when we get to the last two. Anything else on Metroid?
Nope. Metroid makes all the sense in the world as the number 3 to me.
All right, here we go. Go ahead, Steven.
Oh, I was going to say one thing. What I think also Nintendo is doing that's brilliant is they're bringing back the 80s and early 90s and throwing it back in the faces of what we need now, which is just entertainment. And they're using these characters as the forefront.
All right, so when I went to see the Mario movie, and there were two scenes in the movie that when I saw it, I immediately went, oh my gosh, not only was the NCU correct from that source and others, but the roadmap is probably true. So here's the fourth one. And again, folks, I don't know if these are movies or if they're shows. I want to clarify on that. It's the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, but I mean, they could start putting these into miniseries or what have you. We just don't know. But the fourth item that I have on the list is Yoshi's Island, and it does come with a little description here that says that the movie would be used for an origin story for the Mario Brothers, Peach, and Bowser. So, guys, Yoshi's Island, I remember playing it on the SNES, and I think it could be a lot of fun to have potentially Chris Pratt and Jack Black speaking with the voice modulator, pitching them up into baby tones. I don't know what. I have no idea what this movie would be. Do you guys have any takes on
it? This is an interesting one, honestly, because I have a lot of love and frustration for that Super Nintendo Yoshi's Island game. Man, Baby Mario was a pain in the butt. But there could be a lot of fun for that. Now, I think as much as the Mario film was geared towards kids, there was also an equal balance of being geared towards just those of us who grew up playing these games on the NES and SNES, right? This one, however, I think would have a serious focus towards the kids. There would still obviously be that nostalgia there for those of us that played it, when we were kids, but when your main characters are literally small children, then you're right. There's really no way around that, So that's one that is definitely going to, I think, have the potential to hit even harder with the younger audience and with more families going to see the film. I think that's really cool, and I personally would love to see that because I love Yoshi. So, I mean, that could be a ton of fun. There's a lot of cool visual stuff you can do with the Yoshi's Island film because there are a lot of very iconic visual things within the Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's story, and even some of the more Yoshi-focused levels in the Super Mario World game.
Now, I don't know the backstory on how. I don't know if there's official canon in the games.
There is.
That's going to be the same as what's in the movie in terms of how Mario and Peach and all these characters came into the Mushroom Kingdom. Steven, do you know? I mean, is there something exciting there that could be told in the movie?
Well, what I think it is, we already saw the Easter egg of the baby Mario from the Yoshi Island within the movie itself. Oops, spoilers. My bad.
We'll put a warning.
But if this could lead to them, if they're going to do it as a sequel, but also as a prequel, it could show that these guys have had a run-in before at that younger age during the kidnapping by Kamek.
Oh, you know what else would they do, Stephen? That would explain why.
It's like a Back to the Future style. You know what I mean? They went back.
It would explain why Mario is not so blown away by the Mushroom Kingdom when he arrives there in the movie.
And what could have happened if this is a magical Mushroom Kingdom, then maybe his memory was wiped, depending, because we have seen wizards in this, and that Yoshi maybe is in an egg again, because this is all related in a cycle that to protect baby Mario and save him and reunite him with Luigi, something was sacrificed throughout this film.
Could be. I think it's wide open what it could be, but I do know that whenever you introduce these baby characters, if it's done well, the visual gags are just easy to write, and also the merchandising would be fantastic. I mean,
they almost write themselves, honestly.
Oh yeah, and kids would be buying up Yoshi toys and Baby Mario, Baby Peach. Oh my gosh, Baby Peach and the girls' aisle would just sell like crazy.
The other
So,
brilliant thing is that the dude that actually kidnapped the younger variants is actually in service of a younger Bowser, which also could introduce Peach to Bowser and why the crush started, and that's why we're seeing the crush.
that
Like,
would be
I'm gonna
funny to have
marry
Jack
you.
Black playing that one. Yes.
Yeah.
I want it to be pitched way up high and sing Peaches again like that in baby form. That would be with a toy piano. Okay. Well, okay, I'm more excited than I thought I would be for that now. Just with that one scene in mind. All right, guys, you ready for the one that really I think is a shocker?
Is it Kirby?
No. On the 5th of this one, this is way out of the blue, so we'll find out. I mean, if this happens, this person's great on sending us stuff. All right, so the next one is Punch-Out. And this is what it says. It says, former heavyweight champ Doc, what's this say? Lewis? Lewis, I'm sorry. Former heavyweight champ Doc Lewis rediscovers his love of life and boxing as he helps a tiny boxer overcome huge challenges. So, any thoughts on that? Did you see that one coming?
No.
You know, I don't want to be that guy, but hear me out. Each one of these franchises within the Nintendo universe, and then now subsequently the Nintendo Cinematic Universe that we're looking to see here, each one of those franchises kind of speaks to and caters to a different audience. Each one tells a different type of story, and you can really hone in on specific relatability depending on the story that you're telling. With a Punch-Out movie, they could effectively do I don't want to use the term modern, but that's the word I'm going to go with, a modern CGI Rocky.
Mixed with Karate Kid is what I'm feeling when I read that.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's what's interesting to me. It starts off, and I know that in Punch-Out, the main character is what, Little Mac?
Yes.
Is that the main character, Little Boxer? But it starts off talking about Doc Lewis, who I believe is the trainer, right? That's the guy who's the trainer in the series?
The bike, yeah. The guy on the bike on the start screens, yeah. That became that.
So if they switch this around, and I don't know that this is what's happening, but if they switch this around where it's not about Little Mac, but instead it's about his trainer, who maybe he's like what's the guy's name in Up? Not Russell, the older man, Mr. Ferguson. That's his name, right? Fredrickson. I'm sorry, Mr. Fredrickson. If he's like a Mr. Fredrickson character, where he's got to be cajoled to come and help, and that rekindles and inspires him to love boxing again. This could be a fun movie. And it was completely out of the blue to me when I read it. I was like, how strange. But the more I read it, I thought, well, this actually could be a lot of fun. Out of all of them, this is the most quirky idea.
I think it shows that they're willing to take risks and branch out and not pigeonhole themselves into just one type of storytelling. And that's important. You need to have some variety in your storytelling and in the genres. This has the potential to be really interesting. And again, this is how you do this. This is the way to do it. You start with setting your cornerstones, your keystone characters, your tentpole characters and franchises, your Mario, your Zelda, and then you start going down the pyramid from there, right? So this is something that I can see being the kind of 5th or whatever film, because if they're getting consistent success with all the preceding ones, then absolutely you have that maybe get out of jail free card to take a risk, take a chance, just like Marvel did with they made the Guardians of the Galaxy D-tier heroes, household names, right? Because they had proven success with the films that led up to that. Nintendo can do the same thing.
And I have something better if you want to share this screen quickly, because this will make sense. And this actually comes to the Mario movie. So look at the back. We see all these different punching, boxing images here, and then we see Little Mac. And Little Mac.
My gosh. I had no idea, Steven. How in the world did you even think to find that?
I Googled it, and it was broken down, and yeah, that pretty much makes sense. You can see the towel.
Oh my gosh. They signaled it in the first movie.
Look at the gloves and the shorts, too. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's all over there.
It's literally set in Brooklyn. It's literally, oh my gosh, Steven, I had no idea. This is so cool that you did this live.
The Easter eggs in this film were off the chain.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Rocky is doing very well, even the Creed stuff, right? Why wouldn't you go out and try to make a Illumination NCU Rockyverse like Wolf
what
is
if
right?
What if those gloves and what if I think that shorts on the right side, what if those are Doc Lewis, his items hanging in the restaurant, and there's a tie in here? Maybe he goes to eat here at the restaurant. That is just fantastic and cool. If this comes to fruition, I tip my hat to everybody at Illumination and Nintendo.
There's also another great thing that can actually, since this is in here, and we've always seen like how the final battle kind of happens within Brooklyn. We could do like what they did with the Batman versus Superman and how it shows Ben Affleck's point of view when Clark is fighting Zod. But it's going to have.
That's a great point.
And it's going to do something like that. Maybe
the Little Mac character is inspired, to fight his bullies or something. Mm-hmm. That inspires him to go find Doc Lewis. But okay, and I don't know if it's Doc Lewis or Doc Louie. I apologize on that, folks, if I'm getting that wrong. But let's bring up one thing that might be a little bit controversial, maybe, but let's just bring it up. Mm-hmm. Nintendo doesn't have a lot of dark-skinned characters, right? They just don't. They don't have a lot of, especially the farther you go back, there are not a lot of characters who would appear to be of African descent. However, Doc Louie or Doc Lewis from the Punch-Out series, again, apologies for my ignorance on this character. I was more of a Sega person back in the day, but that is one of their characters who is darker skinned. And if he's the main character, I think that would be, a stroke of genius, honestly, on Nintendo and Illumination's, their way of fixing perhaps that problem. Do you guys have any thoughts on that before we hit this last part of phase one?
I don't think it's something that they're worried about, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe Illumination and, the Western half of things, maybe that's something that they're like, oh, okay, we're getting to do this.
Sure.
But Nintendo has marched to the beat of their own drum for decades, and they're not changing anytime soon. I don't think they care. I think it's just how things should be, which is just, it's circumstantial. That this is the character, so that's the character we're doing. And it's as simple as that. Nintendo does not worry about that, as they shouldn't. It should just be an organic thing, and that's what it is with this.
I'm going to throw one more thing in there because Wolf makes a great point. But we also remember, if you remember the original Punch-Out, who was the referee for most boxing matches? Mario.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I had forgotten about that.
And they did have Tyson and other ones in there as well. So it could be more along the line that it's going to be all interlinked. Probably they're going to come to the pizzeria and he's going to ref, and bam, there you go. As for diversity, at the end of the day, Japan really didn't focus on that. They were making entertainment based off for entertainment. They didn't look at like skin color or anything like that. So I don't think that's the first forefront they're thinking of. I think they're looking at is how can we make a Rocky and do it better for all ages.
Agreed. Yep. Hi guys, I don't know what you're going to think of this last one. I mean, I have no idea if you'll like it, dislike it, or what, but it is what it is. It's right here. So the last one is Koopa Kids. So Koopa Kids. Yeah, that's what it says. So you might think we're getting Star Fox or Kirby, or you might think Animal Crossing, but nope, it says Koopa Kids here. So I don't know if that's. I guess that's the little Bowser's
Mario 3. Yeah, that's Mario 3 related. That's pretty much all the little bosses you fought along the way up till Bowser. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Is this maybe a movie where they go to free their dad from the Mushroom Kingdom? I don't know what it is. Guys, give me some guesses on Koopa Kids.
I think more Goonies and trying to get the appreciation of Bowser himself.
They do a Goonies.
I see this as being more of a comedy than anything. Yeah, I don't know if I would put this ahead of something like Star Fox and introducing some more of their IP. Star Fox is a fantastic and pitifully underutilized IP, I might add, for Nintendo. And Kirby as well should be an easy sell. So I think that this is absolutely a movie you could do, or maybe even like a mini series, like a TV series, animated one. and I think there's a lot of potential fun to be had with it if they take the comedy angle, very slapstick, Goonies type stuff. But I would have put this a little further down the queue, at the very least, behind Star Fox and Kirby.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I've had some time to think about this list, and it's not the list I would come up with. I also think it's interesting that there's not a Donkey Kong movie in this phase 1. And then the other thing that, made me really ponder, well, maybe I need to put this out there, like maybe I do need to talk about this in video, was when Seth Rogen came out and said that he was trying to get a Donkey Kong movie. And I thought, well, that might mean it's not in pre-production, if he's trying to get one. But on the Star Fox issue, I wonder if they're trying to give some breathing room in the sci-fi genre and have Metroid come out and then give that some space, so it's not like, oh, okay, there's a girl fighting in space, and there's animals fighting in space, but rather, put a little bit of a barrier in between it. And on the Kirby side, I don't really have an answer on that. I don't know why I'm not sure, unless they're just trying to save Kirby. The other thing is, you got to look at the cadence of releases. We don't know if they're going to start trying to put out 2 of these movies a year. And if so, when that would begin. We don't know when a Zelda movie might be on the horizon. Like, okay, when you have a movie come out and become the biggest animated film of all time, like, how fast does that start turning the wheels? Because when we're talking about 6 things here, we don't know if some of these are movies, or if 1 or 2 of them is a streaming property, and we don't know how fast these could start coming out if this thing is selling. I mean, if you're making $1.5 billion off these things, oh my gosh, they're going to want to pump them out 2 a year.
Well, I mean, that blows the doors wide open, right? You set yourself a floor where, okay, if we hit this, we at least made our money back. Now, if we hit this, we've turned a decent profit. But then you give yourself stretch goals. It's like, okay, if we exceed this, then all of a sudden all bets are on the table, and we can start doing start putting stuff on the whiteboard, guys. Right?
Yep, that's a great point. Steve, what do you think?
The way they're going with these characters, it seems like they're setting up a Days of Thunder Mario Kart, because a lot of these characters that were announced are also in the Mario Kart roster, but at the same time, it's also giving avenue to Smash Brothers as well. There's too much linked in between, and if you can probably have enough time and do the back history, seeing how all these characters interlink through the games, they might have a bigger NCU than we actually realize. And also, like you were saying before, with Mario being the Iron Man, if Bowser, let's say, is going to be the Thanos of this, why not have his underlings get their own film and show how far he's willing to go to get the Mushroom Kingdom, Princess Peach, and defeat Mario, which could then lead with his failure, if they do decide to do that, whatever happens in their battle, Wario.
Yes, he joins forces with all the bad guys in his quest to get Peach. That would be great. Okay, so let's talk about real quick what we would like to see. I mean, we're playing a little bit, right? This is major speculation again. This thing could be from 7-8 months ago. We don't know. We don't know what could have changed since. But let's play around for a minute and pretend that this is absolutely in stone. In a phase 2, clearly I hear Star Fox, I hear Kirby. What else would you guys like to see in phase 2?
I would like to see a legitimate Donkey Kong animated film with the DK rap blaring. I want to see all of the Kongs from Donkey Kong 64.
90s callbacks like crazy.
I want to see Diddy. I want to see Dixie. I want to see Lanky. I want to see Funky. I want to see all of them.
Are we doing Diddy Kong Racing?
No, they would probably under the same flag as the Mario Kart if they were going to connect it.
Yeah, that would just get tossed in, I think, and looped in together with that. But the reason for that is because I'm not a massive Donkey Kong fan, but I enjoy the old Donkey Kong Country games and Donkey Kong 64 enough. And I still have flashbacks from that horrendous late 90s or early 2000s CGI Donkey Kong animated series. So I need something better than that.
Steven? What would you like to see in a phase 2?
I would like them to take on Disney and give a Halloween flick and give Luigi his haunted mansion.
Oh, yeah. That would be a lot of fun.
At the same time, I think they should bring because there's another Easter egg in there with him playing Kid Icarus. So I think Kid Icarus would pop up as well. I would like to see, to be frank, I would like to see them bring in Captain N and try to branch that out.
A lot of people have talked about that. That would be an obscure character brought back, but sometimes those deep cuts are really what energize fans.
Yeah, because Mother Brain is also, I believe, one of the main enemies of Samus, right? And was also linked to Captain N. So why not branch out that way? And that also gives the princess from Castlevania, if they decide to get Konami's help, then you got Castlevania on the horizon.
Exactly. Well, I have heard people talk about Fire Emblem. I have heard people talk about they would like to see Bayonetta and some of these other films that are way out there in terms of being very different than Mario.
Bayonetta's a reach because it's very borderline.
It's very mature. I don't see them doing Bayonetta as much as I would love a high quality Bayonetta. I think
who's ready for Nintendo Cinematic Universe Black Label?
That's good. That's good. If people want to watch something animated Bayonetta, go watch the animated movie. It's excellent.
There you go. Well, the cool thing about this is Chris Pratt, in the interview that he did a couple weeks ago now, he said the Nintendo Cinematic Universe, you're getting all the stories. And that's very confident. We didn't have the box office numbers back then, but the amazing thing to me is it looks like we've got a decade plus of nonstop Nintendo movies that are going to adhere to what Nintendo wants. I talked about this before in another video, but for Hollywood, this is huge, right? It's the biggest animated feature film of all time, and there are people out there defending Frozen 2, and I'm just like, listen, when this thing hits Japan, it's gonna be nuts.
There is one thing that I think we all overlooked here, and it's that creepy star that was in the cage, which is a reference, I believe, to Mario Galaxy, right? So if they're going to decide,
is that Rosalina? Is that the name of that character?
Yes.
Yeah.
Give me Galaxy waifu.
So if that's true, then that could open up a whole bunch of different worlds, not just within the Mario universe, but that's how you could probably link everything else that's on the horizon.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think that's how you excuse the kind of multiverse.
Yeah.
In this instance.
But for Hollywood, this is a huge thing. I mean, this is just changing everything. Honestly, it's changing everything. Even the critics, now the websites are going back and quietly changing their reviews without saying anything, which really tells you that they're trying to now adjust so that they're not losers, because their prior work was definitely the work of losers. But for Nintendo, this movie's made. It'll probably make $1 billion. It might make it up to 1.5. Who knows? But Mario games on just the Switch alone, we're not talking about any of the other consoles, $9.1 billion in revenue just off Mario. So Nintendo has all the leverage. They have. I mean, this is nice for them. It'll help them, but it's not anywhere close to the size of their game industry. So Nintendo has all the power. What I want to hand to you guys, though, is I don't see any opening in the future. And people have been, arguing about this online, on Twitter. They're saying, oh, no. Disney, they'll be back. Disney will be back. And I'm like, when? When is Nintendo going to let them back?
If Nintendo plays their cards right and is smart about this, Disney won't have a say in the matter.
What's going to beat Zelda, honestly?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not a darn thing.
And if you get Mario out there and it does that, and then Zelda is unbeatable, then you know what that does? Creates a snowball effect. And every movie after that gets to rise up because of people suddenly getting Nintendo fever.
Nintendo will literally, let's look at Zelda as a prime example. You're pretty much taking Disney and saying, haha, no more Cinderella for you. This is just using as an example. They're taking away the fairy tales through their video games. The other thing is, like, we've only seen a movie coming out. We haven't seen how it's going to affect the sales of Switch, games, properties, DLCs, and everything else, because they also had bundle deals. We don't know what they're going to do for branding on the next movie release, and whether or not they're going to link their console games or their DLC or special codes. Like, Nintendo has a lot of options here. That's not just taking away from Disney. They're going to bury Disney just by how they're going to do their marketing next.
So Disney at one point wanted to try to pull Mario into the Wreck-It Ralph franchise. Wolf, how badly does Disney have to feel right now, knowing that not only did they not get Mario in Wreck-It Ralph, but this little side character they thought they could have in their great big movie is now going to kick their butt for as long as Nintendo wants to do it.
I'm sure they're kicking themselves in the pants. And then they're having each one of them turn around. They're collectively kicking each other before they go back to kicking themselves. Because that's a huge miss for them. I mean, as well as the Wreck-It Ralph movie did, like you're not competing with Mario. I'm sorry. Nintendo they have questionable business decisions when it comes to their hardware. However, they have uncontested IP in the gaming industry. There is it's like Mario and Zelda are like Batman and Superman, right? There isn't really much out there that's in the same conversation. Like, you can talk about things like Halo, you can talk about things like, Witcher or whatever. I'm sorry, I love those franchises. They're not as big as Mario and Zelda.
Exactly.
There is a fantastic alternate universe they could also throw down there if they wanted to go a little kooky. All they have to do is ask for the permissions to use Rabbids. And you got Mario Rabbids.
That would be kooky. But I'll tell you, I think as this thing grows, don't be surprised if when we get to that Super Smash Brothers movie, who knows, that might be 2033, 2035, sometime around there. When we get to that point, don't be surprised if Sonic, Pac-Man, Mega Man, and all of those are joining, because if the NCU gets as big as it can, other companies are going to be very eager to put their iconic mascots right in there, the same as we have seen happen with Smash Brothers. And I do have one single request for Nintendo. I want a horror game, and I want it to be Duck Hunt.
Oh my God. That dog laughing.
Oh, that's stupid right. Dog.
I want it from the eyes of the ducks. We've never seen what they're seeing, but it could be terrifying.
You could do it like Friday the 13th, but instead of you just have the dog laughing instead.
I love it. All right, guys, final thoughts before we wrap this thing up. Not all at once now. Not all at once.
Go ahead, Steve.
Sorry. Try not to laugh. I'd say bring it on. I think the crown that Disney once held is now up for grabs, and I hope Nintendo and Universal keep on that road.
Yep.
Wolf.
Pro, you and I have talked about this before with the doors to the industry being blown wide open from things like, the potential for Harry Potter making a massive comeback and Hogwarts Legacy proving that.
Oh, yeah. We talked about it being rebooted and the kids were going to be recast, and people said, no, it'll never happen. And this was like 3 months ago. Yep, it's happening.
And what did those things do? Not only did they come to fruition, but they also proved Access Legacy Media to be useless. They proved critics wrong. They proved it to be an intelligent thing to do something for the fans, and Nintendo is following through with that. And Nintendo has the potential to just completely dethrone Disney in a way that Disney has no say in the matter over, because they're failing with Star Wars, they're failing with the MCU. This is the prime time for somebody to be like, there's blood in the water. Let's get them.
Yeah, and it really shows that the market is moving to just sensibility, right? We're getting away from the crazy. So we can have all the shrieking and the yelling, and we can have all the people who want to do divisive stuff. We can do all the dogmatism and all that, but that's not what the market wants. And that would seem to indicate that's not what society wants. So politicians and corporations, they can try to push us to extremes, but it seems that the reverse is happening all throughout societies around the world. And so entertainment may actually be a reason for us all to feel just a little bit more optimistic. And we thank Nintendo for helping us feel that way. All right, gentlemen, Fat Steven, where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
Oh, you can find me on Rumble. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me slaving in the back room doing thumbnails for TTP and Valiant Renegade. All in good fun.
That's better than rabbit chicken burritos, right?
I don't know. Those are quite tasty. I think, especially when they come fresh from the new Hilton plantation.
You think Mexican Iron Man is skimming some of those tacos off the top? Is that what you're saying?
I think he is.
Getting some freebies?
Yeah, he's the taste tester.
Wolf, if people want to find you, where do they find you?
Check me out over on Twitter, on Twitch, and on YouTube, and every Tuesday night as the co-host of the High Council.
All right, folks, these two are definitely worth a subscribe. Go check them out at the very least. Descriptions are down below the video. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. The Pro Show, Thursdays, 5 to 7. That's Eastern Time. Thursdays, it's live. You want to be there. And don't forget the membership is open. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show, Thursdays, 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment explained, the culture curve conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.